listener-supported radio station on the planet. Revolution Radio.
Welcome to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes to Cultivate Consciousness, where, for the next 2 hours, Bridgette Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet will be sharing their knowledge and understanding with their own beautifully unique twists on all topics related to helping humanity to achieve betterment of health in body and in mind. Settle yourselves down on this fine Saturday evening. For now, it is time for Bridgette and Kelsey.
All right, everybody. It is Saturday. And it is the 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slot in Studio B. And it is Bridgette and Kelsey.
Woo!
Woo! I know. Seems like it was a long week, doesn't it?
Oh, my God. This week was so long.
It was. It felt like a month. Like I haven't talked to you in a month on the show.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like that. We've been talking a little bit throughout the week, but what a weird week.
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of planetary stuff that's going on, and people are up and down, and people are, it's just a really crazy period. You just got to kind of stay with it, keep yourself focused, and keep your intention strong and hold your attention. But yeah, so hey, everybody out there, donate. Keep us on. We're non-corporatized radio.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And so we can say anything we want but the F word. So we're So we're First Amendment radio, but we need your donations more than ever. And so several ways that you can donate. We have Zazzle.com. Get a mug or some, shirts. Get your favorite hosts, pictures on them, shows that you like the most. Get a Revolution Radio shirt, Freedom Radio. You can also go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And at the bottom of the website is snail mail. You can find a way that you can send us something in the mail. You can do a money order or however you want to carry that out, a check. Also, if you hit the donate button at the top of the page, you'll have a drop-down menu, and you can use the ATM, credit card, your unemployment, debit card.
Your unemployment. That's the best you haven't gotten ours.
Yeah.
Fair.
And lastly, Patreon. So you can, have a little something come out of your account every month, as much as you want, donate as much as you want. It could be like $5. And that would benefit us greatly, considering nobody here at Revolution Radio, including management, we do not make money. Most of us have other jobs to support our lives. So everything that we do at Revolution Radio, we do it 100% volunteer, free. So we just ask that you help us keep the lights on, keep our servers up, and help us, with making the show better and better and better, and our servers better and better, so that we can stay online for a long time into the future. And also, after the halfway mark into the second hour, I've got another section for the solstice. We got more solstice ceremonial action coming at you. And then I found, this came through school this week. My applied anthroposophy class on Thursdays, and so I thought I'd read it for Kelsey, because it's kind of, it's kind of up Kelsey's alley.
Aww.
And I thought it would be really good. It's written from a guy named Michael Howard. It was written in 2004, and I'm not sure if it was from a book. I suspect it was from a book, a section, don't know what page, but one of the people who were giving the Leading Thoughts lecture mentioned it in her lecture on love, which leads us to freedom. And this last class was about, developing your feeling and creativity to actually help your will, right? To help your will. And so whenever you have that will action, that will is like the third chakra area. That's where your will comes from. It's where that gut is, that gut feeling that kind of leads you to what you should do next if you're questioning things. So anyway, I thought it would be good to read. It says to develop the feeling /will potential of each individual is to develop the artist in each human being. To develop the artist in each human being is the next great frontier in our evolution. The development of the artist in us, of our feeling, our will, calls from the same dedication of our time and resources over the next coming decades and centuries as we have given to the development of the scientist in us over the past centuries. As we do so, we can expect a different but equally radical enhancement in the quality of human life. We will discover new faculties and capacities that are as vital to society and economic life as to cultural life. In developing the eyes of the artist in us, we will begin to see the realities of the world and other people that otherwise elude us. It is in our blindness that we do most unintentional harm. When we can draw upon and harmonize the complementary nature of both the scientist and the artist in us, we will become more whole individuals, capable of creating a more whole society. Michael Howard, 2004.
I like that a lot. And I think I know a little bit of Michael Howard's work too, now that I hear the quote and going into the conscious creativity, and I appreciate that so much. And because there's a conversation, I think that started like through social media last night, maybe like 2-3 in the morning, and just kind of centered on this. And I lose sight of like the drive and the mission to want to teach people how to be creative and to be artistic at times, because it gets overwhelming. And I think to hear it from this perspective, or to hear it from Michael Howard out of your mouth, Bridgette, it reinforces the notion really of how important this work is. So that's cool.
Well, I ain't no artist, but I do design nature. I do make herbal medicines and salves, and so I think, at least, on that level, I feel like I'm kind of I'm a medicinal artist, I guess. The medical artist.
Yeah. Artistry shows up in a lot of different forms, and I think that's probably one of the most common things I hear out of people is like, oh, I'm not an artist, but I do this thing that's art, but I'm not an artist. Or like maybe it's a social thing too, because we've lost sight of how we can include artistry into anything, or just the last several decades of what is art has really been questioned, and we got really locked into what is art being like paintings and sculptures and so on and so forth. But we lose sight of the culinary arts, and we lose sight of design as an art, and how that goes into things like engineering. And my mom even says this one to me all the time too, because like you, Bridgette, like she's all about the garden and the yard and working with the earth. And so like flowers, landscaping, it's an artistry. You're communicating a vibration and a feeling and a vibe to people. And I think we're just told that if you're not doing it this way, then you're not the real thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, no, it's interesting, taking this anthroposophy course and all the different structures that we're going through, and how it all kind of fits together towards freedom, and in the future, the freedom of the human being, as we evolve and we develop, and so I kind of really appreciate it. I really appreciate this whole. It's taken me like 3 or 4 months to maybe longer, September, October, November, almost through December. Okay, so 4 months with this anthroposophy. Every Thursday we have a class, and then you're supposed to join a practice, like a meditation practice, at least one of the 5 days. It's just a lot. It's a lot of work on top of all the osteopathic work that I'm doing. But it's taken me a while to kind of understand this whole, biography, but as social art, and our current biography, our past biography, our future biography, how it relates to other people, and how their past, present, future biography relates to other people. And that's been kind of a really, really interesting topic for me, because biography in the past has always been, okay, well, you get through a certain section of your life, then you can write this, biography on yourself, or have somebody else write your biography. But to actually have it applied, weekly with other people, and how that mirrors back and forth, and I've even kind of been toying around with, maybe doing a once a month, like free class on Zoom, where people can drop in and we can mess around with this whole social biography, and how this relates to you and how it relates to me. And, maybe even just picking a topic for the month to focus in on. And then people can come back the next month and we can talk about what happened, exploration of it, research of it, what we found about other people, ourselves. And then, then lay down the next, biography, what we're going to focus in on, what the next theme would be for the next month. Because I think it's really interesting, like I've learned a lot about, because last week, you had to kind of go for the second hour, but I was talking about, the last class and what I learned, and that actually, in some ways kind of surprised me about, like, instant mirroring back. All I have to do is ask the question. And the questions were last week for the social biography were, we get the question, and then, we have to meet in groups, and we have to, have an answer. And so the 3-part question was: 1, where is there not enough love in the world? Your view. And 2, where is there too much love? And then 3, how are you affected by question 1 and 2? And it was like totally clear to me, because, I see a lot of people not really taking very good care of themselves. So that's where I saw not enough love in the world, not enough people caring for themselves, feeding themselves right, taking care of themselves, especially at this point in time. And then the second part was, where is there too much love? I don't think there's too much love, but in nature, like nature gives you abundant energetic resources, like in a very good way. So, and then, how does both of those affect me? And it was like, because number 1, I'm not taking good enough care of myself. And number 2, I need to be in nature more right now. And I think that's what's cool about this social biography, is that you can see the mirror, like right then and there, as you're working on it, and how it relates to you, and what your perception of the outside world is. And it's the answer to your inner yourself as well.
Those sort of revelations are really nice to have, especially when you get the direct feedback. And I think, especially with art, people lose focus with how art is used to construct society. There's part of it that is commentary on what's going on, but a lot of what I teach is how the intention, the energy, like where you're sourcing that creative energy from has an impact, and it has this, like, whether subtle or grandiose effect on the collective energy. And as a creative person, and knowing that there's a responsibility that goes into the work. And I think there's just so many people out there who are just doing what they want, putting things where they want, just making stuff kind of without thought, without really being conscientious of what it is that they're doing or why they're doing what they're doing. And it gets tough, especially when it comes to self-care, because I think it's really important to teach that empathy. And I think meeting in a group once a month would teach people how to build empathy, especially from like the perspective or the lens of biography.
Well, I think it would just be a really cool thing, to initiate, and then, have people join and just see what happens and where it goes. Because I think I'm just at a point in my life where I'm not as reactive to things as I, was when I was younger. And so I think it would be good being in something like that, because I could be pretty laid back and just kind of allow people to, unravel the way that they need to, and how others are going to react to that, right? And then be able to help just, energetically mediate it, just to see what happens, kind of as a cultural experiment, I guess.
Neat.
Yeah.
Experimentation. I'm a research scientist. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll take data.
We'll talk more about it, and then we'll tell our listeners about it. So if people want to be able to join, you'll have enough time. Maybe we'll start something like that in January. And then
fun for the new year.
Yeah. So, email us if you're interested in something like that, Zoom meeting once a month. And then you can find us at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Go down to Studio B, click on the 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Saturday thumbnail, and there'll be a back page and there'll be contact information. So yeah, contact us there. And if you would like to join this cultural experiment.
Yeah, I'm down. There's a lot of creative things that we can plug into that.
There are huge amounts of just different kinds of thoughts and ideas. And that's the interesting thing, is like with this applied anthroposophy, some of us in it are coming from biodynamic background. Some of us are coming from anthroposophic medicine background. Both of those are kind of my backgrounds with Steiner. Some are coming from Waldorf. Some are coming from just lots of different places in it. So that's the coolest thing about it, is like where their perceived reality is, and their systems of belief, and you also, and I don't want to put people into like categories, but the other thing that I've really noticed in it is that the different levels of, I'm just going to say, like spiritual education too. And so you have some people that are fairly new at, kind of inner discovery. And then you have people in the group that are like, real old school, like been through all kinds of social discovery. So it's interesting to listen to, people's different kind of takes on different kinds of stuff. But anyway, I was going to throw this other quote out there by Rudolf Steiner. And because Rudolf Steiner was very much into art, our senses, and, how we develop. And that's where Waldorf comes from. There's like 12 years of development for the human being. But anyway, so it says, love, mediated by the way of the senses, is the wellspring of creative power, of what is coming into being. Without sense-born love, nothing material would exist in the world. Without spiritual love, nothing can arise spiritually in our evolution. When we practice love, cultivate love, creative forces pour into the world. Rudolf Steiner.
I like that one too.
So anyway, yeah. So anyway, I would think it would be great. So anything else, like going on. Both of us were kind of like hauling ass moving forward with all of our projects, and we're like getting stuff done, and then all of a sudden we've come to like not like a wall, but maybe an exhaustion point.
Well, no, yeah. I had the realization today that just because this last week was just so intense, and I feel like just tears came out at times when I would just like wasn't ready for them to sort of a thing, but I feel like because over the last couple of years I've been putting a lot of work and energy into meditations on confidence and stepping into my power and speaking my truth and communicating who I am and showing up in the world and being available for other people. And I feel like I put myself on this like accelerated growth path, especially within the last couple of weeks. And I just feel like I've just been slingshotted so far forward and have just gone through so much and have processed so much. And just, it's overwhelming. And yeah, I'm exhausted. Just exhausted.
Well, that's that, be careful what you ask for, right?
Yep.
I want to know. How bad do you want to know? I want to know.
Well, here you go.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. It's a little painful. We just ripped the Band-Aid off, kind of, but no, it's all good stuff. It's good things that are happening. Like, from one perspective, it could, be another stress or another one of those things. It's like, oh, well, whatever. But I think just making room for something better, what's meant to be, what's in alignment with where I want to go, that kind of stuff. And just recognizing and accepting that things just haven't gone as planned, and that's fine. And I think in this like accelerated path where like there's the processing, it's not giving me a whole lot of time to like sit in it and ruminate and to overthink it. And that's usually where I get into my creative space and I can just make stuff. So I haven't had a lot of time to be creative and to make stuff. But I feel it. I feel that like the dam about to break. If that's what that wall that I've hit is. I've like hit the dam wall, like going down this river. It's like speeding up, getting like close to the waterfalls, and I hit the dam wall. There's so much pressure and so much force that like I just want to break the dam and just let it all out.
Then you would be in a healing crisis.
Yeah, I don't think I need another one of those ones.
Yeah, it should be like it.
Without, I don't know. There's got to be a more efficient way to conserve all of that energy and then redirect it into powering cities or something.
Yeah.
Flooding the valley.
Yeah, I know I don't have anything that I'm really, it's school. I have lots of school going on right now, but I don't really have anything really creative, now that I've got my salves made for the, the fall and into the winter. And so now I don't have any medicine collection till, the cottonwood buds start to come out again. And then I'll start going out and collecting those all over. And then I can, that'll take like maybe a couple weeks of going out every day. So that's always like something kind of good to focus in on, because it'll be the first medicine that kind of starts to grow. So it kind of kicks off the season. So it's kind of exciting, when the cottonwood buds start to bud. And you can smell them. This is something that I've learned from cottonwood, and I'm sure it applies to other big trees, that you want to collect medicine from. But I realized like the cottonwood buds, because I kept going last in January looking at the cottonwood buds because we had that warm snap. So I was collecting them like in February, and then we had a freeze and the buds stopped, and some of the buds that had come out died. And then we had another, it wasn't until April where it swung back up and warm, and then it started, continuation of new buds. but I only did the more of the winter collecting from that point because I'm experimenting with different times collecting stuff. I mean, cottonwood buds, maybe you have a window of like 3 weeks. And I could have collected in spring when they started to grow again. But the one thing I kept thinking was like, okay, how do I know? I mean, obviously you have to collect the bud. The bud is what's going to turn into a leaf, and you have to get it, before it even starts to go to leaf. Otherwise, it doesn't really have the pain medicine in it, and other really good qualities for healing for skin as well. So, but it produces a smell. So, up until it has that moment where it has that really cottonwoody smell, all of a sudden that's, when all the sap and everything is going into the tree and it's like coming alive, and it's kind of like it's hormones, and you can smell it. So last year I really learned that, waiting for that bud to be really, really ready as soon as the tree was up and operational and it was moving all of its systems, and I could tell by the smell. So that's kind of, I guess, how I use my creative. I use my eyes and my smell, my hearing. For example, you hear a lot of bees somewhere. You're going to go out and look at the plants, and you're going to out there in the wild and try to, walk through until you find where all the bees are, so you can see what they're doing. So I think creativity, I use a lot of the senses I have in order to assess, I guess, nature and figure out, when it's time to, turn its medicine into something else, into maybe a more human animal form. But yeah, in the wintertime now, I just really miss not having places to tromp around in and, take a look. And so it's kind of like, it's my hard time.
Aw. Art time is a good time.
Yeah. So next year, I've got a whole bunch of things that I'm going to make. I'm going to make this thing that I wanted to make this year, but I didn't get it made because I need to have I need to buy some glass, 5-gallon glass jars that have pressure valves on them, like you'd use for brewing beer. But I'm going to do probiotic using apple, because you would make apple to make apple cider, which is a fermented, drink. It's also super good for any kind of, health stuff that you have. And then I would use ginger, and ginger would help to make it, fizz up, and also has a great probiotic for stomach and digestion. And then I was going to put all these herbal plants in there that I wildcraft, go and get them, chop them up, put them in there, and then let them cure, ferment for 3 to 4 weeks, and then take the plant mass out, extract it, and then add kefir to it. I've got some really amazing water kefir, so I could add water kefir to it that would really enhance it. And then I would have this, fall immune system jump medicine, that people could buy by the bottle, just, coming into the fall, so that they could really build their immune systems up coming into the winter. It'd be like a one-time thing once a year, and you would, drink it over a week out of your little bottle, and then you'd just be doing great. Put all kinds of immune building, plants in there, and for inflammation and stuff like that. So it could be pretty amazing little fermentation. That's why I need land, and I need a place, because I have all these. I need a laboratory.
Yeah, I want a laboratory too, somewhere I can spread out and just make stuff.
Yeah, I need a lab for sure.
Creative arts lab.
Yeah, with the outside cob oven, so I could cook bread.
We do pizza nights too.
Yeah.
There we go.
Get up in the morning and hi-yah my bread, and then let it rise, and then about the time I get hungry lunch, start my cob oven and throw my loaves in, right?
You got it all planned out.
I do.
Vision is clear.
It is. And I can taste it now. No, I can even
Once
taste
you
it.
get all the sounds in it, the sights, the smells, it'll be right in front of you.
Yes, yes, yes.
We'll manifest it. It'll happen.
So anything else going on that's exciting? And so what did you learn? I mean, so this week, just, I'll put you on the, I'll put you on the stand. So this week, what was the biggest thing that you learned, or what you have been learning, been helping you? And what kind of breakthroughs did you have with making a stand and standing up for yourself? Was there anything significant?
I think what's standing out to me is just along the lines of endurance, especially not feeling good, like with stress, and just knowing that, like, all the stress that I've been experiencing and the overwhelm, like, it's having an impact on my body and my physical health. And I've been putting it off for years and years and years. And so this week I ended up making a doctor's appointment just to go in, and I haven't gone, like, seen an actual doctor in probably, like, at least 10 years. Like, having my son kind of counts, but just in terms of, like, getting a health checkup. But I just notice just how much things have shifted, like, on a physical level. And I think so much of my life, like, I don't think it's that I took it for granted as much as just feeling all the things and being very in tune to very different senses. I tried very hard for very, very many years to run away and dissociate and detach from my body and to not feel things, because I don't know, I didn't appreciate and value life kind of in general. It just was. And I just worked so hard. Like, having my kiddo just turned all of that inside out and upside down, and just gave me the purpose and the motivation and the drive to take care of myself and to do the things that I want to do. And I've kind of been honoring that over the last few years, probably a lot better than I ever have. And a lot of the work and the research that I've gotten into is in consciousness and the healing arts, or in implications for self-healing through creative practice. And so I just wonder at this point, like, am I going through this body level thing or whatever this, because I feel like as far as mind, the spirit stuff, I've worked through that, and now I'm, like, face to face with my body and having to really, really love it and really nurture it and to take care of it. And I need to do better. I think it's all right, but it's just, I don't know, I need to do better as far as, like, taking care of my physical health and my physical well-being, and putting the energy into myself instead of giving all that into everybody else, because I feel like there's people around me who are excelling and propelling, or people who have been helping who are further ahead in life than they've been in a really long time, and I just feel like I'm so far behind. so far behind. And so I'm working on giving myself that permission to propel myself forward, but wanting to do so in a way that also helps to propel other people. So that's what I gathered from my week, I guess. And just how much I miss my creative practice. I got into coloring again over this last week and started working on some just, like, coloring book pages, and I love it. I love the feeling of it, and last night allowed myself to just write. And I love writing, and I haven't been giving myself the opportunity and the space to do it. So my aha, and what I've learned is that I really need to give myself the permission to be successful and to be able to be happy and healthy so that I can show up, and so that I can show up and be able to do the work that I want to do from a focused and grounded space, instead of coming from maybe it's emotional reactivity, emotional overwhelm, just like a disconnect from my identity. I don't know, because you had said something to me several months ago in form of like honesty, or in being honest or being dishonest, and what that sort of stuff looks like. And I've been thinking a lot about what am I not being honest with myself about? What am I not seeing that other people are seeing? Because here I'm feeling like things are one way and things, and I'm doing them whatever, but I'm not necessarily seeing the results. And then the feedback that I'm getting isn't necessarily in alignment with what my intentions are. So trying to pull all of those things into focus and to get really solid in self, I don't know. It's kind of challenging. But the whole radio thing came through throat chakra stuff. I think we touched on it a little bit last week, just in terms of throat chakra. I don't remember how it came up, or just in the energies of it. And so I don't know.
I had a throat chakra morning on Fetch's show. Dennis Fetcho, the Into the Eye. He was before my show on Saturdays, but I had never listened to his show. He didn't have time to listen to my show, but he said that a lot of people that listen to his show are constantly remarking about my show, and that he should listen to my show because I'm saying some pretty good things. And I was like, wow, that's just super great feedback. And then he said he just didn't have time. But there's a point where I had to kind of talk about some stuff that happened here in the state that was just really traumatic for me, being attacked by the state and the government for my private practice for no reason. I mean, it happened to a whole bunch of people here in the state, where they tried to get rid of anything alternative. I mean, even having a supplement would have been a felony, a level 1 felony. And talk to him about, defeating that bill at the legislature. And so I had this moment where my throat totally shut down. And I was like, oh my God. I said, see, I still have trauma. My throat was like, shut down. Don't talk about this anymore. I said, I still have some trauma around it. My throat's like, he's like, I know, I heard that.
Trauma stuff, it's hard. I think our brains, our psyches are pretty gosh darn resilient and pretty good at suppressing things and pushing things away so that we don't necessarily have to deal with them in the here and now, so that we can cope. But living life when you're just coping all the time it's a really tough place to live in.
Take it to another notch. I mean, we think that we're having a lot of trauma, and we think about all this other stuff, and I think Americans get traumatized actually really easily because we don't really have the kind of stress that happens in the other world. I mean, think about people like Palestinians constantly being bombed,
Not that often
for the last 60 years.
Yeah. When you're in the midst of all the stress, when you're in the midst of it, it's norm.
Well, you don't know if you're going to wake up and half your family is going to be blown away in the building that you were living in, and not having medical care or whatever else because people are closing your borders and basically fencing you in. Same thing that happened to Native American people and also Aboriginal people in Australia.
Yep.
But then I think about people who go to war. I've had some serious trauma in my life, but I've never had anything like having to be on a battlefield and shoot other people dead. And then, taking a look and just having, blood and guts everywhere.
Yeah.
I've never had to endure something like that. And I think about, like, traumatizing, like what we would consider trauma in America is nothing compared to what's going on in other parts of the world and other people. I mean, can you imagine? There was a man who, I forget when the picture came out, but I was reading a biography on him, and I can't remember what his name was, but he took this really photo that became world famous. It's kind of when Americans started to find out that in Africa people were being starved to death, right? And it was this picture of this baby, child who was barely alive but laying on the ground, and there's like this big vulture standing over it, waiting for it, because the mom was too weak, the family was too weak to do anything about saving that child. So here you have, like, nature coming in to actually finish the job. And the guy who took that iconic photo, he took it because it was like, that one photo says more than 1,000 words.
Mm.
And he ended up actually committing suicide because the photo had such a huge impact on him and what he was seeing, at that point in time, being a photographer, like a geographic photographer kind of person, that he just never really got over that image. And he ended up taking his own life over it. I mean, sometimes, the trauma, I don't think that I've been through any kind of trauma that is not healable. I mean, I just have to keep working at it, but I think pretty much, even though a lot of it's been pretty heavy, I think that all in all, I can heal it, hopefully, before I die. But I don't know how a person could heal, like, in war on a battlefield, or seeing, I think, things that are so inhumane, or having to do things, that are really inhumane. I'm not really sure that could be healable in one life. Growing up, with a father who had been in World War II, who was a good man. I was so blessed to have him as a father. But, like the trauma and things that he had to do on a battlefield, because he was he ended up being one of the snipers, for his command or whatever else, which meant that he had to shoot off the people in front of them, around them, behind them, and set up to, kill these people before troops go through these different areas. And I didn't find out any of this until after he died. I mean, I knew he was in the military. He had lots of scars all over his body, big ones from having shrapnel embedded in his body. But I didn't know a lot of the stuff had happened to him, and he was pretty traumatized. There were moments where he would just, his trauma would like overshadow everything, and it was like a shutdown period, a disassociation period.
That's a hard one, yeah. Because you can see somebody dissociate.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I didn't know
No.
exactly what it was,
No.
but now as an older adult, now I understand exactly, what was happening. So I don't know if my dad could have healed, the things that he'd gone through. And he didn't even tell me or anyone in our family. We had to hear about it at his funeral from other vets that he would, he was friends with, kind of his story and what had happened to him. And, once you heard it, you're like, wow, it just all makes sense now. But I'm not really sure, how you, heal that kind of level of trauma. And, it's really interesting is my uncle, who I love. And when I was a kid growing up, he's like, 6'5", and lived on the river. That's all he did. It was spend his time in the mountains. He came from a mountain family, and fished and river, and ate out of the river and nature and all of that. Grew up. So when I was little, and we'd have these big family, camp outs in different places, big hunting and fishing family. When we would go fishing, he would like get into the river and walk the river, and then I'd be by his side holding onto his pants with my fishing pole because I was little. And then if it got too deep, he'd throw me up on his shoulders and he'd walk down the river, and we'd both be fishing, in different directions trying to catch fish. And so I spent my whole childhood and summers with him, and we were always just quiet, and we would just fish. We'd just go and fish, and he took me everywhere, and we fished all kinds of different fishing. And he was probably one of the most important, significant people, in my growing up years. But one of the things we talked about, I hadn't seen him in years and years and years since my grandmother had died, I think in like 2002, I think she died. And everybody kind of lost contact. And then I saw him on Facebook a couple of years ago, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, so excited. And then we touched base, and then I went to visit him, and we were talking about, because, I'm older now, right? And I could see the things in my dad, and I knew he was in the military too. And he had recently lost his brother in like 2013, I think, a fight with Hodgkin's disease, because of all the Agent Orange, that was sprayed on them and stuff like that. And they were denied VA benefits for years. And my uncle didn't even get his finally approved till 2013.
That's terrible.
It is terrible. And one of the things he said was that when they were forced into the military, he said him and his brother, we were mountain kids. And, we shot guns, and, because we hunted, we fished, we ate from the environment, we lived up in the mountains. And he said, so we were naive, we were mountain boys. We didn't have violence, there was nothing to be violent with or about. And he said, so when they got drafted into the military, they were forced to go in. They were giving clothes, assessments, weapons, taught how to shoot the weapons. And, they were pretty good at everything because they were mountain boys, right? They're in really good shape. They're good aim. And he said they didn't have really any idea, him and his brother, of what was going on until they were released off a plane, literally onto the battlefield, and had to immediately start firing at other people, and couldn't even really wrap their minds around what was happening. And so he was like telling me this story a couple of years ago when I was at his house, because I was asking him, I think when you get older, you have different questions for family and family members. And then he just said, we were so naive and we were so innocent, and we were just mountain boys. And we just we couldn't even wrap our heads around war or killing people. And he said, I guess we were just kind of in denial because we didn't really know what was going on until they threw us out of this plane on the ground, plane landed, they threw us out. And then, we had to start fighting and shooting people.
Survive. Yeah. You got to protect yourself.
Yeah. And I just think about how, as far as like trauma is concerned, I think that we should have a lot better, and I hate the word therapies, but I think we should have a lot better care, a lot more intensity towards, crafting and creating, ways to heal for people with that kind of level of deep of trauma,
I agree. There's a lot of really neat tools out there. Like Psych-K is fun. I don't know if it's fun, but it's a neat tool. Or like the EMDR therapies. I don't have personal experience offhand with it. But there's new approaches or new innovations within therapy that are helping to resolve PTSDs in various forms, or to help people come to these resolutions of these really complex problems very quickly, or even microdosing through different types of some of the hallucinogens and things. But
yeah, I had just so you know, like, I'm kind of not, I'm not keen with microdosing for holistic tools, just because I've done, some ceremonial DMT, and it was really not a good thing for me. And I ended up extremely chronically depressed for 6 months and couldn't stop crying. And then, was kind of catatonic for about 5 years.
We had talked about that a little bit before. Yeah, drugs are bad. Okay, no.
They kind of, some of them are, especially if you're not prepared for, what you're going to see and view. I mean, some of it could be worse to your psyche than, what you're already dealing with.
Be traumatizing in and of itself going through.
Yeah. No, I just finished this program for my osteopathic stuff. And it's a specialty that my teacher that I learned from, but basically we went over 900 ligaments in the body and used a technique called neuro EMB, and you can release all kinds of levels: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, energetic, trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, injury, whatever else it's going to be, through dealing with the lesions in the ligaments, where the body's not working well, or there's pain, or and then so you can go in and release the ligament. And then I just learned this killer process, actually. It's just, I love it. I'm doing it on everything and everyone. Oh, here, let me fix that for you. But it's way better than like any of the light therapies that in psychology they use. And it's way better than neuro-linguistic programming, because those two things can release things out of the emotional and the mental fields, right? The trauma. But you're always going to have it in the body. I've never seen this stuff released from the body through those methods. And also it never releases from the energetic field, where this thing that I'm learning, with making the corrections in the body, I connect it to the different areas of the development. So there's 4 phases of development of the different areas of the body that you connect with through the system. And then what you do is you hold the ligament, and you find that out of the 4 areas where it's pulling, and then you work with that area to release it. And so you can release it down the timeline. So the 4 points are the endoderm, 2 of the derms that develop when you're going kind of from polywog to more of a human form. And both of those points, one is in the abdomen, and then one is actually on the top of the head. And then the other point is develops, the one on the back of your neck, actually, that point develops from when you're born to like around, age 1, when you start to lift your head. So, and that's in the back of your neck. And then the last point is the 2 major parts of your brain. It's a 2-point part on the face. And so that actually can take you back. And it's interesting doing this on people and finding lesions, in their bodies where the ligaments need to be released to kind of reset the system. And it's interesting to hear what people have to say, because, if I keep going back to the same point, like I keep going back to the abdomen or the top of the head, I'm like, okay, what happened to you, right, that keeps initiating over and over again in your life from when you were kind of a polywog, kind of turning into a human, where you're starting to sprout legs and things like that. And I was working on my friend, and he said, well, my mom got hit by a car when I was in that phase of development in her womb. And so everything that's wrong in his body, mentally, emotionally, physically, and energetically, all goes back to this damage, this impact that occurred in his derms, right? In his levels of tissues that were kind of developing at that time. So it's kind of interesting to see how, and then he'll just keep playing out that stuff. Those same things will just keep affecting him, you know. So it's really interesting to, you know, like worked on somebody and it kept going back to the part of the neck. And so what happened during the phase between you were born and learning how to lift your head and be able to sit up, you know, on your own. And you find out that, you know, they, you know, were dropped accidentally by the mother, you know, or something happened, or one of their parents, you know, grabbed them by their arm and jerked them around, or, you know, something happened, they fell off a bed, you know, they were jumping on a bed and fell off the bed, had some kind of, you know, damage to that kind of an area. Oh, hey, we're in break. We'll be back.
Oh, ready? Oh.
We're breaking.
Okay,
break. So 4 ways that you can help support us. Patreon. It's a funky little red button right on the website, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And donation button at the top gives us a donation right now. We don't have to wait for. Snail mail, the bottom of the page of our website has all the information, who to make the check out to, where to send it. And then, you know, get your favorite shirt. Get your Support Revolution Radio. Get a Revolution Radio shirt. And support freedom of information. And you know, we have so many different hosts on Revolution Radio. Everybody can probably find something that they're into for sure. If you can't, I don't know what to tell you. So anyway, all right. So I wanted to start this hour off just so I don't forget. We don't forget to put in our solstice thing. And then I was thinking, you know, after solstice is over, maybe we can work together on Valentine's Day, you know, do eight weeks to Valentine's, and just talk about every week, put out a little, you know, something or other that can help people to, you know, move towards it in a powerful way. We'll just have to see how it goes. Or maybe we could do the equinox, you know, 3 months to the equinox.
Equinox would be fun too.
So I wanted to talk to people kind of today. I don't know how long this conversation is going to go. And I'm going to read this because I have a lot of just beautiful books, Native American stuff, written by beautiful, just very keepers of ancient knowledge. And this book is called Earth Medicine by a guy named Kenneth Meadows, who is a Native man. And it's such a great book. I just love this book. And so we're going to talk about where we're at on the medicine wheel. So, and in each, you know, tradition, there could be, medicine wheel could be different. The information on it could be different. The different gates, the different directions, east, west, north, and south, those different gates could be ruled by different colors and different thoughts and things to watch. But I'm going to read from Keith, and I think that this is an alignment with Lakota as well. So basically what we're going to talk about. So when we're dealing with this time of year, we're at the solstice mark. We're coming into the solstice. This period actually of the time of the west, the direction of the west gate, starts around the 22nd of September and then has 3 periods, and then the end of the time of the west ends on December 21st every year. So the 3 different times in the sections from September 22nd starts the falling of the leaves, And the totem is crow, and which correlates to the sun of Libra.
Caw, caw.
Yeah, and then the second phase of the west comes in on the 23rd of October, and that's the frost time. The totem is snake, and which correlates to the sun sign of Scorpio. And right now we're in what's called the long night's time. And it started on November 23rd and goes through the 21st of December. And the totem or the medicine carrier of it is owl, which correlates to the sun sign of Sagittarius. So I kind of wanted to read about a little bit about what the West is, so people can kind of understand, because, you know, when Kelsey and I were talking in the first hour, a lot of the stuff we were talking about, it totally fits into the kind of work that you're supposed to be doing right now, right? So Kelsey's right on track.
Woo, good.
Okay, so when we're going out and we're working on, you know, our little solstice altar or our little solstice intention, or you know, the little things that we're going to be doing, our little wands and sticks that we talked about a couple weeks ago. We want to make sure, like at this time, that we're incorporating, if you feel safe to deal with owl medicine. It's one of my things that I carry, and I know that there are even some Native people that owl is not a friendly being in their belief system. But we want to honor owl because it is the long night, and owl is kind of a medicine of non-deception. You know, it's a night medicine. It's a nocturnal medicine, which it's a dark, you know, it's in the dark period medicine. So, but owl is a master at being able to see and hear and use all of its senses in the darkness. And it's very difficult for you to even hear owl as it's moving through the air or flying, unless it chooses, you know, to make a sound. So it's good medicine if you're dealing with a lot of darkness and a lot of dark energy, because it can help you. So we want to like incorporate some of that, but we also want to incorporate in our little solstice thing about this period of time. And I like what he has to say about this time. So the function of the West, which I just told you, we have 3 phases of the West time of the year, which is now the falling of the leaves time, the frost time, and the long nights time. We're in the long nights time. The function of the West is of holding. Now, holding does not mean freezing or imprisoning something in order for it to stay as it is. The ancients regarded holding as a reflective pause before change and transformation. Holding is a pause in the transfer of energy from giving to receiving, from receiving to giving. Transfer of energy from giving to receiving, from receiving to giving. It is a bit in the middle. It is an acceptance of what has been received, whether through one's own efforts or from others, and a consideration of what one can give of oneself to keep the wheel turning. The west direction is likened to autumn, which is the season of consolidation, when growth stops and when, in the natural scheme of things, humans held on and stored the fruits of their endeavors and also examined themselves to discover what changes were needed to make progress when the time of renewal came. This, indeed, is the essence of many life experiences that West people will find themselves undergoing. The power of the West expresses itself in a stabilizing influence. The human response is to gather things around you, to get things organized with clear directions or rules and conditions, to have things cut and dried. Anyway, I thought that was such a good analogy kind of you know, where we're at. And I like a lot of these old ways And I wish that I actually was living them kind of more intently, like on land, being able to observe, each time, so that I could pay attention fully to, where am I at? What am I supposed to be? What's going on right now? And I like that whole thing, because people would say, oh, well, the West, the time of holding, right? But I love that it says does not mean freezing or imprisoning something in order for it to stay as it is. It's more like you're just holding to watch things unfold.
Or it makes me think of my son too. And my son is in Capricorn, but he fits into the realm of the owl. And it's funny because he's been, maybe over the last 2-3 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer, he keeps going into this, look, I'm an owl. Or he tries to turn his head all the way around. But it's true, he's an owl. But he, all the time, he gets into these modes where when he's kind of transitioning from different moods, attitudes, or kind of from one activity to the next, he goes into this thing where he's like, Mom, come hold me, or Mom, hug me. Mom, just hold me. And that's all he wants. He just wants to be held. He wants to be in this space of holding. And it's one of my favorite spaces to be with him, where I just get to hold him, where we just get to be, and we just get to exchange energies and just get to take a moment just to be warm, because it's not a freezing space. Holding is such a warm space. It's such a loving space. And then when he's done, he's done. He's like, okay, that's it. And then, off to the next task and off to the next thing. And I never really know how long each of those holding moments is going to last, but I treasure him so much. He just gets so big. I like that too, holding. It's not imprisonment, like you're saying, because when it's ready to go and ready to move, you got to be listening and you got to be ready. Because if you want to hold it back, or if I try to hold him back, no, hold me longer, then it turns into a fight and it turns into a struggle, or he's trying to wiggle away, or I like that analogy a lot too.
Yeah. So we're in that West period.
Just hold me. I just want to be held.
Well, and sometimes the best thing to do is hold yourself.
Yeah.
Or just, stop what you're doing and like you've been doing and processing.
Hold still.
Yeah.
That one's been a tough one too. Well, there's a couple of times over the week where I caught myself pacing. Everyone else is sitting still and just kind of chill and relax. I'm just pacing and pacing and pacing and pacing and pacing. So yeah, holding still is something I think I need to do a lot more. Just busy, go, 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 go all the time.
Yeah, and though I'm not a big fan of channeling, there is something that I really like about Esther Hicks' work, the Abraham, because they are kind of funny.
They are.
And she said she said that Abraham likes to use the word croak instead of die, because you're just making a transition, so it should be like no big thing, but when you're alive you think it's like a total, like, terrified of the moment that you're gonna croak over. And she always talks about that, like about how we're just like running and running and running, and that there has to be these moments where you have to stop and you have to allow what you've created to actually catch up with you, because we're constantly outrunning everything all the time, and we don't see like what we've been doing. We don't see it actually show up. So then we try something different, and we continue to outrun trying to find solutions or put the pieces together or whatever to bring everything together so it works. But because we're too busy and we're moving too much, we never actually halt for a period of time to allow what we've already done and already created to actually catch up with us.
That resonates a lot, because I feel like, especially in feeling like I'm so far behind,
And actually, you're probably so far ahead that everything that you've been working on just has not caught up yet.
It feels kind of true too, especially with the COVID stuff that's happened, because I feel like it was no big shock for me. I mean, I'd already been kind of living in that lifestyle for a couple of years, or I don't know, yeah, that's interesting. That's a good one to sleep with tonight.
Yeah, I got to slow down so the money I've been creating actually catches up with me.
That's it. I'm gonna start taking it from that one instead of feeling like I'm far behind, because I'm a sprinter. When I used to run track, and I wasn't really one for distance, not to really pace myself and whatever. I get bored. I can kind of do distance running every now and again, but as a kid, I was a sprinter. So I did the 100-meter, the 200-meter, and the 75-meter hurdles, and I would just go as fast as I could and just go, 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 and then crash. But so much of my life is like that. I just like to go fast as I can. And then I get exhausted and I get tired and I fall down.
Well, I think it's just like the training of the American, which is the A-type personality.
Yeah. Yep.
No rest until you die.
You're not allowed to sleep. No, I have this guilt. If I rest or if I sleep or if I take a day, kind of like today, just to stay in bed all day, I feel really guilty. I should be doing something, or I can't do nothing. There always has to be something. But I think it's all just a distraction. Or you had said something to me maybe a couple of times too. Just quit running. Just quit running.
Yeah, I know. I used to be quite the runner for a long period of time. For some reason, I looked at life as this magical marathon that if I could just get through the ribbon, then everything would just be perfect, exactly the way that I wanted it. And then, I've had a lot of really beautiful Native teachers, but my last teacher, who passed in 2016, he always said, it is what it is, and it's going to be what it's going to be. And the only thing that you can do is wait for, it to come across your radar, and that'll be the moment that you actually will, get to confront it or do something about it or make changes. But until, it unfolds. So I always have to remind myself, because sometimes I think, if I see something, and this is the hard part about being empathic, and if you want to call it psychic or whatever you want to see, but I can see things coming down the timeline, and sometimes I can feel them, and I'll actually start moving into a situation where I'm trying to create a solution for it because I don't really like what it is. And then I'm way out into the future, and then things get really messed up. So I'm trying to outrun it and outthink it and outbe it. And I think the perfect place is, to be, it is what it is. So just, live every moment, whatever shows up. And then whatever it is, it is, and then you can just deal with it there. And whatever it's going to be is what it's going to be, which is, tough because, we want to, I think, control things. And I think that's, just a security mechanism.
Or I kind of find myself too, within the creative thinking or the creative thought process, there's a really fine line between being in creative mode where you can just full on express, and I think there's somewhat of a psychic connection to that space as well. But there's a danger in that space, because if you get too creative and there are too many solutions, right? I can see so many different solutions to this one problem. Which one am I supposed to pick? Which one is it, or how? Or I can see 8 different ways to get to the same place. Where do I go? And then it just gets very confused, or I find that I just get lost, maybe. Or I get off track, or try to do too much. Or like it's like overworking a painting where like it can be done and you can just walk away and just like start on the next one, or you can sit there with it and just change it over and over and over and over and over and over and never be done. Like at what point is there a resolution, or is something solved?
Well, I have to say that I'm so glad that I'm more of an environmental designer because at least I can think long term, like, could put up a couple trees there and then they're going to grow and it's going to look like this. And then we'll add in some of this and it's all edible, and you'll have, different phases and different seasons, with your landscape. But, when I look at stuff, I think 50 years down the road, so it's like, how do I design that, and what kind of plants do I need to start putting in now to prepare, to be able to do that. I can't imagine having to tear it down and rebuild it, tear it down and rebuild it at like the same spot over and over again. That would be tough.
It's tricky. You just kind of have to accept whatever comes out at some point or another. But I think there's an element to it too within the creative process where you definitely have to think ahead and think into the future of like how long, one, do I want this piece to last? Is this something that's just going to be temporary and fleeting and going to blow away in the wind? Or like, am I making something that I want to last hundreds and hundreds of years? And is this something that future art restoration persons are going to be able to restore and to recover? Because I see all the time, like in the years that I've curated art galleries and have done different types of shows and have worked with various levels of artists. And I saw them the other day in the coffee shop, or yesterday in the coffee shop, where the work, it's good. The concept of it, it's good. But it's a collage piece where like words are adhered to, like magazine cutouts of letters are formed into words, right, to create the piece. And on the largest piece, these little magazine cutouts, they're just taped on there like a piece of tape rolled over. Like there's no way in hell, I mean, it's a good piece, but there's no way in hell that thing's gonna last. Like it's so easily destroyed. And I just see so many artists just making crap. They just make crap. They try to sell something for a couple $100. It's like that thing isn't even going to last. Like I can run my hand over it and everything's going to fall off. Like,
we're a short-term society. We're a throwaway society. I think that's what they call us now. The throwaway society.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, if I make art, I don't want somebody to throw it away. I want somebody to take really good care of it. It's an extension of me. I don't want something that somebody's going to leave in the sun and it's going to fade,
Well, that's how I feel about environment. There have been times where, and then here goes the throat chakra. No, I have trauma. This is traumatic. No. In the past, when I got out of biodynamics school and a whole bunch of other courses I was taking at Rudolph Steiner College in Sacramento, I was commuting, 3 hours to go there and back sometimes. Sometimes I was there over the weekends, like at least every week for a year. And when I got done, at least when I was doing the school, I was closer to the Biodynamic Northern California Association, so I could jump into some of their meetings and things that they were doing and, making preparations and, discussions and talks with just, brilliant, amazing people. So when I had to come back to Reno, I had no idea what to do because I'd been going on to big farms and big areas, things where it was more peri-urban, which is between cities and, big sprawling urban areas, or natural farm areas. And then you have the urban farming. And so I kind of had to do urban farming in Reno. And so people where I was living. I also did backyard food productions, more like urban settings, builds, did the whole thing, the education of the people to, grow 4 seasons, like, the whole 9 yards. So what had happened was that I kind of stopped doing that after like 7 years, the building part, because I couldn't get people invested in backyard food productions once I'd stopped taking care of theirs, and they would have to replant it or reseed it, and I taught them how to do it. They would just, close up shop and just not deal with it anymore. So when we went back in to look at some of these builds I did, it was like a nuclear apocalypse. Like it was like so beyond destroyed, the wood of the beds. There's like, all kinds of like thick grass growing. I mean, like, totally encapsulating the whole thing, dead trees. This, like the whole thing, completely just was destroyed. I mean, at one point I always had people get at least one animal because, making compost is really important. A lot of people like laying hens. You could do meat bird fryers, which are easier to do in a backyard. You could do rabbits for meat production, and, so there are different animals. But one particular house, their backyard production that I built over a year and grew, and they had 4 seasons growing, and I was feeding 20 other families out of there once a week. I had a lady across the street who was pickling my, cucumbers organically, because I had like something like 180 cucumbers a week out of just a small area. And I had all kinds of like diversity of food coming out. But it became, way more than I could handle as well. But there was one place where I got a call from the neighbor, and I hadn't been over there for like about a year, I guess. And the neighbor said that, the chickens are not in good shape. So I taught the people, how to have the chickens, and they free ranged them during the day around the yard, because you want them to, because they're the best bug getter ridders of, they just do such a good job with bugs and insects and, all those kinds of problems. And they fertilize everything. You can have like an amazing looking lawn if you would, just barricade the chickens on the lawn every day, a big lawn, and don't put any chemicals or fertilizers on it, and they'll aerate it and peck it and eat it and poop on it, and you'll just have like a beautiful lawn. And it'll also help to feed the chickens. But anyway, the backyard, so I went over there to look, and the chickens were locked in this small fenced in area, and they were standing on like 4 feet of chicken poop and feed, old feed. They had like pulled all their like feathers out, because they're super stressed and distressed. And so I basically had to have a talk with the owners, and I think that they were kind of grateful, because they turned out that they didn't really like gardening and farming and growing food, and they didn't really want to deal with the chickens. So I had to actually save the chickens and find them another home. But at least the neighbor called me so I could get them out of there before they were dead.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, so, as art as a canvas, having to go in and look at some of those things that I built. And I used a lot of, on a lot of them I used resources that I found. Like I'd go past a remodel on a house, and they'd have all these old pavers that they were going to take to the dump, or this, that, or the other thing. And, I would go through and pick plants and, and other just kinds of things and build them. And then some I did, really good high-end builds and, seeding and seed collection and putting in berry bushes into their landscape, just making things just beautiful and luscious and green. And to go back and just see like it was totally destroyed was, I think, kind of shocking for me. It really kind of, on some levels it broke my heart, because the builds and everything that I did was so meticulous that it took so much time and energy and lots of, passion. And to see it like look like an atomic bomb just blew the whole thing apart. It was completely, everything was dead. Was like, kind of, I think I did get some trauma and some post-traumatic stress disorder from that.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's heartbreaking. And I think that's why art especially can be valued so high, especially for little tiny pieces, because if you buy something for $20, and somebody put all this time and energy into it, I bought it for $20, it'll end up in a closet or like in a box of stuff buried under some other things, and it gets scratched and the paint comes off. But if they buy something, or they buy a piece of artwork and they fork over $2,000 for it instead of $20, I mean, you better believe they're not going to stick that thing in a closet and bury it underneath something, right? Because they paid $2,000 for it. They're going to make sure it's out of the sun. But it's tricky. I think that's a big reason why I hold on to a lot of my artwork too, and I don't give it away, especially my favorite stuff. Things that are like really meaningful to me, I keep for a really long time, and I think I have a hard time being really prolific or like super manufactured with art, because I don't want to just make stuff to make stuff just to have money. Like that doesn't.
That's how I feel about herbs and farming. Like, I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, I need an income, but I don't want to have to rape something else, to make that income, especially like you said, putting so much like emotion into it.
Right? Or just not putting emotion into it. Like, 'cause if I'm just doing the thing without putting any of the emotion into it, then it's not fun for me. Then I feel numb, and then I'm like, why am I even doing this if I have no passion for it?
Exactly. I mean, that's how I really feel about herbs, like getting out in the environment and kind of poking around and seeing what's going to grow, because you're going to have similar assortment of plants, native plants that are growing wildly, but it's interesting how they choose to grow year from year, depending on their resources that they get. I mean, like, for example, this probably, one of the best areas for me this year was up by Patagonia, up the little trail there where there's like this creaky thing that kind of runs down. There's all kinds of willow there, lots of medicinal plants, but I came across a little marsh area that had a lot of cattails in it, and peppermint just went nutso in there.
Huh.
And I was coming up the trail in August. I could smell the peppermint. It was so strong because it was hot out, and when I came across it and it's flowering and all these bees on it, it's just like the most magical thing, and to look how beautiful nature made that little teeny little swamp water area, and with all the different plants and the design and these beautiful plants with these little peppermint, flowers on them and all these bees all over them, loving them to death. And just the smell, the aromatherapy of that peppermint, it was bewitching, because it just kind of like you smelt it, and just every part of you, was like, oh, where is it? You're here. And then just see how nature developed it all, and how it was. And I'm in this area, I'm not used to seeing like a peppermint or a catnip or even a spearmint, grow that epically, in one area, and then have it all flowering. And it was beautiful. I mean, it was so beautiful.
Moments like that are always so fleeting too.
Well, I picked some and it went into my medic salve. So I still have it with me.
It's with you, yes.
It's still with me on some level. It's just been transformed.
I like those sort of moments, or I like when I find art like that too, or I just find a piece or just something that speaks to me, or you just find something that's just so well done, and you just appreciate the beauty that goes into it, and just the beauty, the aesthetic, just I don't know, the everything birds can't say. It's always in those moments. I gotta show you real quick.
So I'm hoping, I can't wait. I can't wait to actually have land where I can actually grow things. And then I can actually create, these. I really want to grow linden trees. They in Europe. They're really medicinal. They're flowers, and you can, dry the flowers or you can use them wet, but they're super good for like coughs and things of that nature. And they're these beautiful flowers, and the whole tree just blooms beautifully. And I really want to have some of those, kind of medicinal plants on the land. So that I could make cough syrups from flowers. I mean, how cool is that? Like, oh, take your flowers. Go take some flowers.
Okay, fine.
Go munch on some flowers. Yeah. And just have it be like an orchestration of beauty and flowers and pollen and, like all the plants moving and singing, together in harmony, and have these different parts of the year, have these giant symphonies of frequency. And, I was thinking about this, everything has, if we left it alone, everything is in nature is kind of created with these frequencies. And I think about like trees, and I was thinking about how, you have this tree, it doesn't have anything on it. And then all of a sudden, it's been asleep. I mean, it's been so asleep that everything in it, has left its form and gone into the ground, into the roots. And then all of a sudden, it starts to wake up again, right? I mean, like a true waking up, like a hibernation, like a bear. And then, it wakes up, and then it starts to develop. And then, if it's a plant that is going to grow flowers before it leaves, because, it's going to grow some kind of fruit or food or medicine, and it goes into this beautiful blooming phase with smell and pollen. And then, it starts to develop a fruit, these leaves come out. And then, as soon as like the flowers and leaves show up, the scent frequency, right? So if you look at like sound, a lot of things that have been created for sound, they usually have like a horn or a dome or something that can move that. Well, in flowers, they have these very domey sides to them, and they have these leaves. And so when the wind starts to move them around, it changes the vibration, not only the vibration of the area, but the wind, because there's not only a sense frequency, but there's also a sound frequency that we probably can't hear. And then the leaves developed, designed to make certain types of sound. If the leaf gets ripped off, the wind's going to carry it in a certain kind of way because of its design and its weight with the amount of water in it. And then, as it starts to go back towards hibernation, and then all the leaves start to harden and the colors start to change. I see wind and the breeze and all these, and the sunlight and everything moving these frequencies and harmonics, but we wouldn't call that color a frequency. But, when it's being driven by wind and air, there's, chemicals that are coming off. And then I always think about like the grand ceremony of the tree, the grand, its grandest period is when all the leaves dry, and you have this wind blowing through these leaves, and all the different sounds that they're making. And then when they hit the ground, they either will stay in their area and they'll become compost, they'll become the food for the tree and the microbes underneath the ground. So it's taken back in, the tree takes its, dead back into itself. But then when the leaves release and they're like blowing around and down the road, I was thinking like what an impact that tree makes, because that leaf could blow clear down the street, and that through that leaf, it's like the tree and the energy of that tree is touching that place. And then I think, how sad it is that people rake all those leaves up, and don't allow them to continue on, spreading the medicine, spreading the frequency until, basically it's mulched down and there really isn't a whole lot left. And then it goes back into its hibernation, right? A full hibernation. I always think we think that medicine is much more important and that you have to go get a degree so that you can be licensed to do medicine, when these trees, have these periods of different kinds of medicines and that they're imbuing out into the world, that goes out into the world, around that area or even further out, and how it's changing the air and the water and the different kinds of frequencies and energies, And so, I don't know, trees I look at as kind of better doctors than allopathic doctors.
Well, I think one of the things that you're hitting on that stands out to me is how there's the different senses that overlap, or how there's these more subtle energies that go together. And it makes me think of an art project that I did with an ex-boyfriend of mine, oh gosh, maybe 10, 15 years ago or something. I don't know, it's been a while. But we came up with a project for a Nada Dada exhibit that goes on. Nada Dada is a thing that happens here in Reno, and it's gone on for 10, almost 11 years now, where the idea behind it is artists can get a room and they make a show through various hotels, old motel rooms and things like that, downtown. And through this project, we ended up getting room space through the Wildflower Village and one of the art houses, and we came up with a project called Identity, the Sound and Art. And Huffington Post picked up on it and did an interview for us, which was pretty cool. But I had done, as part of my research as my undergrad, I was looking at neurological implications of aesthetics and consciousness. So I was running photo samples of art pieces through a computer program that generated different visuals of the image that breaks down the image based off of how the primary visual system sees it, how the brain encodes it. And I used some of my own art pieces in that research series. And then so my boyfriend, he at the time took the photo samples from the art pieces, or from my art pieces that I had generated through this experiment, and ran them through another program that he had found online that takes visual information and decodes it, or turns the visual information into sound information. So he took each of my paintings and turned them into auditory representations of what the visuals were, so we could hear each of my paintings. And then from each of the paintings, or from each of the audio samples from each of the paintings, he composed it into a song. So that was neat. But it just makes me think of how these frequencies, be it color, light, they have that auditory component to them, whether we can see it or not. Or even through some of my research in looking at synesthesia, people who have the synesthetic experience, right, where they can hear a color, see a sound. And I just think it's fascinating. And so when you're talking about the trees and all these elements that play in, it's almost a synesthetic experience for the tree too. It's not that they're just doing one thing. There's so many other things that are going on at the same time that we just consciously can't attune to, not necessarily all at once. Everything becomes very subconscious. It falls into that 95% part of us that is unconscious, that we don't see. So it would be amazing if people didn't rake up all their leaves and put them in bags and whatever, how different the world would look if we just allowed Mother Nature to do its thing without trying to control everything.
It could be a lot better. It would be less sterile and cleaned up, a little bit messy, which could be really good. Because nature likes it a little messy. Not, plastic garbage messy, but, messy of its own natural fertilizers that they create in their own medicines, that go back in.
Well, how many articles do you see out there that are like, have a messy room? Probably means you're really intelligent. No.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. There was this video, and there's quite a few of them on YouTube now, but I can't remember exactly. Anyway, what tree ring sound played on a record player. And so there were these people that took, core samples of the tree and the lines, and they created it into a disc, and then they would play it. And so each tree had its own record player sound from the rings.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was trying to, I think this guy, I can't find the original guy, but there was like 10 different trees that that he did, and it was kind of a really interesting thing, to like listen to the different trees. But I can't find the main one. There's a lot of people. Hey, you over here, come here. I know.
My doggy's getting restless too. They're like, come on.
No, she's like, here's people going up and down the hall, especially when she hears clanging of other big doggies out there. So, she's like, number one, she's talking to them, and then she's also telling them, hey, look, this is my turf. I'm in here. But yeah, so I was thinking a lot about that, about the sound of trees, like playing their, rings like a record. It's just kind of so little that we know about this world that we live in. I mean, and I think the longer we're here, it seems like the less that we know, and the less, like connected to it, It's been interesting, like I've been kind of going through, some of this different stuff, like you have, like big healing spurt, and then like some grief and healing period. But I realized, like, I've never named the type of medicine work that I do, and like I'm an anomaly with the type of work that I do, and the people that, like I've studied. I mean, when I was 23, I was studying with people who were old, like in their 90s, who were old osteopaths, and different kinds of people that needed somebody like me to carry their work. They obviously knew that I would adjust it and develop it, as I worked with it, and probably combined it with other things, but never really named kind of what I do. And I kind of had like a big breakthrough this week too, where I realized like really what I'm doing is basically, and then I named it quantum connective medicine.
That makes sense.
And so it was kind of really exciting because, I'm just connecting everything back to, where it needs to be, its origins, or reconnecting it, or whether it's, fixing people, or working with the environment, or making herbal medicine. I'm totally using energy and plants and feelings and intentions, while I'm making these medicines to help people to take them so that they can heal, and it helps them to reconnect, and it helps the plants to connect just in a different form. The plants can't meet you, out there in nature because you don't go there, but by you taking these medicines, because it's all local medicine, then it's like the plant in a jar connecting to you, kind of like plant lawn distant healing.
It's on the quantum level. It's all connected.
It is. So that was pretty exciting.
That is a big breakthrough for the week. What else did you learn this week?
Well, I learned that I am ready to move on from the phase that I've been in since 2006. So I'm really done with that phase and ready to move on to a different phase. I think where and a phase that I'm in. I have a long history of being a caretaker, and so that surfaced too in the last, 2 months. And so I've really kind of had to confront that. And caretaker across the board. But my whole family is dead pretty much, and like I already did all the caretaking and in all of these things, and so I think I'm finally in a period of where I want to live my life for myself and not be involved in caretaking. I mean, of course, my dog, because she turned 12 yesterday. So
Happy birthday, Jen.
I know. But she'll get caretaking for sure. But I want to be able to walk away from all this other extracurricular caretaking themes that kind of are in my life. I mean, environment or things like that, but I want to get away from caretaking people as much, and be more focused in on other types maybe of caretaking, and also really doing some big caretaking for myself. I mean, because I eat right, my diet and everything else, but I want to spend more time doing things that I want to do.
Yeah, I feel you there.
And so it's only me that can make that decision. It's only me that can make time. It's only me that can, set the pace of the day, get up in the morning, and what I really want to focus in on. And it's only me that has to keep bringing myself back to that place, keeping me in line with it and making room and space for those things to get done. So yeah, so I'm pretty excited. And I mean, one of the things I would really want to spend time doing is working on people and animals and environments. And I mean, that's where I really, really thrive. I mean, I look at everything like a puzzle that I can take apart and then re-put back together.
I love puzzles.
And that fascinates me.
Yeah, me too.
Fascinates me to untwist somebody, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, and then unravel them and then help them ravel back up, in the right and good way. It's fascinating to me. And I also have to move slower because I have to remind myself more and more that it's just this world is a very slow and arduous world. And I sometimes just have to back off, and I have to allow everything to catch up. I'm just moving too fast in this world, like we talked about a little bit before. But anyway, hey, do you have anything? I wanted to close with, because we're coming into the end.
Almost the end.
Yeah, but we're going to have lunch on Tuesday. No.
It's your birthday. It's your birthday.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be my birthday next week. We're having birthday lunch.
It'll be fun.
So there's this really great quote that was in my class. So I'll leave it. I love this. Oh, wait. That's the wrong one. Oh, no. That's the wrong book. Okay, hold on. I have all these binders right now because I have, 4 different types of classes going on, and so I have that. But, oh yeah, so it's like just a little poem. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lightens up the whole sky. Haffetz. The person who wrote it is Haffetz. Isn't that the coolest thing? Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. I just love that.
Well, I like that it gives without it expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
Especially when you're caretaking for somebody. It always seems like the person you're caretaking for, anytime that person gives, they always expect more caretaking in return.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Holy crap. But, animals are not that way.
Mm-mm.
It's just people.
Yeah.
It's the humanoid variety.
And the puppies are the doggies, the puppies, they're so great. They're loyal and they want to please and they want to be there and
They want to snuggle.
Yeah, she just wants to please. She just wants to just be. No judgment. I mean, no matter what I'm doing, she's right there. I mean, every time I gotta sit on the toilet, she's right there.
All right.
All right. Out, I don't know.
All right. So, hey, if anybody's interested in me setting up this, thing, and then maybe Kelsey and I doing this social biography thing together, meeting once a month, and people want to join into that, contact us.
Yeah.
And we're at the end.
Already. Until next week.
And until next week, everybody, thanks for listening. Adios.
Dig those holes. Carry those stones.
And cultivate consciousness.
Drink your water.
Yeah, drink your water. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution